in this episode.
Being blessed with being the top 13-year-old kid is probably a curse more than...
It's way more of a curse.
Yeah, I would not want to be the 13-year-old that is the stud. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. Another episode in the Hilton Garden Inn in Indianapolis, Indiana. Sunny. Well, not really sunny.
No, it's not. Not at all.
Definitely raining. I was trying to make it more...
Only like 2 inches of rain today.
I was trying to make it more positive than what it actually is right now. We're in a rain delay. And we don't...
But we're being positive with our time.
We are being positive with our time, so we're being... Yeah.
We're trying to get the good word out. Okay?
On the airways of the internet. But guys, yeah, we're sitting here and just having good conversations, and then we got the mics on, and this is our second episode that we're recording. And by the time that all of this is said and done on the editing side, we'll probably be closer to the month of August. And Dave had a really good conversation starter around it's not fear of missing out,
I would say just the overall development process.
Yeah, I would say just fear of time.
Mm-hmm.
And time is so interesting with humans because we only have a finite amount of time, especially for a career, which when you're younger, it seems like it lasts forever. But then when you look back at it, I'm 33 right now, looking back and you're like, damn, that was fast. That was a blink of an eye. My coaches were not lying to me. Like after all those conversations post game, they're like, your career is going to be over before you know it. And you're like, yeah, whatever. And the next thing you know, you're sitting here on a mic talking in a Hilton Garden Inn. But anyways, go ahead. So high school, you have 4 years, and then college, if you're lucky, you have 4, possibly 5. And then if you're pro ball, it's you just basically icing on the cake. You get a bonus season every year. Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Well, I just want to preface it with, these situations that we come up with are everyday conversations that we have. That's a lot of the subject matter of this podcast. It's situations that either come up in our teachings and our coaching and us talking to other coaches or friends of ours in the space. And it's always based around problems and solutions. A lot of times parents, players, and other coaches are going to come to us with issues. And then when we start to hear these things, the same issues over and over and over again, it becomes a great topic to talk about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So as a coach of players of all age groups, a very, very common issue that comes up is a point in the development process where you feel like you're now starting to fall behind the rest of your peers. It's a scary point for a player because that player, listen, you're always comparing yourself to others. You always are, whether you know it or not. When you're watching somebody else pitch and you're a pitcher, you're being like, I wonder if I throw as hard as him.
Well, it's human.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Is my breaking ball as good as his? Man, my last start, was that as good as his is right now? Or how they hit, how they swing, how that you're comparing your team to other teams. You're comparing your, whatever it is, right? You're always in comparison. And whenever you feel like you're starting to fall behind, then panic starts to hit you, right? And the natural thing for a lot of people to do when panic hits in, and this is the same thing from a parent's perspective, is to try to find a quick solution to get you back up to par.
Well, just know you can't avoid it.
But it's going to happen.
If you're probably listening, the first thing is, well, I'll just avoid it. Like, no, it's going to happen. Like you're always going to be feeling like you're going to see something that's going to trigger something in your head, and then you're going to be like, oh, I'm missing out. I don't have that much time. Like I did that when I played. I do that in my business career. I've done it with this club where I'm like, man, we're not even close to where we want to be at. Like, it just seems like it's going at a snail's pace, and then you start panicking.
Yeah.
And you have to reassess your reassess where you are at, and you're like, you know what? Okay, where were we in 5 years? Where were we 3 years ago? Where were we? Yeah, you start kind of taking a macro lens out of it, and you're like, damn, we have been moving pretty fast. It's pretty cool. So, well, anyways, go ahead.
Well, and in this specific situation, like I'm gonna give you like the example of a youth player or a youth parent coming to me with feeling like their son or daughter is falling behind in the development process, that others are speeding up at a rate that their son or daughter is not. I get that brought to me all the time. And I feel like sometimes when I start to give answers, I'm not giving the answers that they want to hear. Because, again, most parents and players want the quick fix. They want me to be able to say, oh, you got a velocity issue? Well, let's go jump into this class right now. Guaranteed within the next month and a half, you've jumped 5 miles per hour. We'll get you back.
You automatically feel satisfied when money exchanges hands because you have solved the issue. That's the whole. Right. That's why we have a marketplace. You have problems and then you have solutions.
Now, in a lot of areas of the world, a quick fix is available to you. It is. It's simple. Sometimes it is. Okay, sometimes the answer is right around the corner. You can go get it. You're back to even level, right, with everybody else. In this sport, not so much. Okay, I tend to give answers, and it's not because I'm trying to be vague with people. It's not because I don't have the answer. I just give answers that stick to what is known as the process, and that, you know, in a situation where a player's falling behind, I kind of reverse engineer it and I start to look at, well, what have they been doing? Okay, what is your current work ethic like right now? What have you been doing over the past year to get better at this, et cetera? And we start to evaluate that. Then we start to look at your trajectory as, you know, where's your body going? There's a lot of answers that go into this. And then normally it all kind of refers back to that the process is different for everyone. Okay? I mean, Michael Jordan got cut as a freshman in basketball at his high school. Obviously, he wasn't ready at that point, and then he's the best player of all time. Every single person develops differently. You got people who mature earlier than you. You have people that just have played longer than you. You have a ton of different factors that go into this, right? Well, hold on one sec. And I would say this: it doesn't do you any good at that time, even though it's natural to pay attention and fixate on what other people's strengths are versus your weaknesses. I think it's much more that what I always go back to is the time that you should be putting, the time that you are putting into others, you should be putting into yourself if you want to take care of that situation.
The issue is that we think that all things are equal. You're at an equal playing level of everybody else. But life does not operate that way. Life operates in different segments. Everyone's on their own journey. But for whatever reason, we think, okay, kids are born, they're all at the same level. They're literally trying to figure out how to live, right? And then when they get to 2 years old, 1 year old, they're starting to figure out how to walk a little bit, right? They start crawling and all that stuff. And then when they get to 5 and 6, they're pretty much equal. You start seeing that there's a little bit of separation. Some people are more into learning in school, and other people really like recess. Some people are a little bit more athletic. And then you start looking at the athletes, you're like, oh, they're pretty much, every kid is the same. If you look at any soccer field of 6-year-olds, it's herd ball. Mm-hmm. They all chase a soccer ball. They don't have any positioning. So it's like, oh, everyone's equal. And then like 8, 9, you start seeing a little bit of separation, but pretty much the same. When you get into puberty, that's where everything starts changing, and we think that we have to catch up. But people develop differently. They age differently. So you're trying to beat Mother Nature. I think Mother Nature's undefeated. I might be wrong. Yeah. Someone please comment back in. I'm being facetious here, but she's undefeated. So why are we trying to make the quick fix? Well, I think it has to deal with human nature. I'm guilty of it too, which is, well, I want to be the best that there ever was, right? But
And you want to be the best now.
Yeah, like I want it now. Can I buy it? Tell me where to buy it. I can go buy it. But that's not going to, because everything happens for a reason. There's always a lesson learned in any situation. You just have to find that lesson. And we don't like hearing that. We want a savior. Dave, what should I do? He's not catching up. How should I do it? And you could literally pry on that and be a predator of that and say, oh, well, if you just do lessons with me for a full year and you do an hour and a half, but it has to be group training. It can't be individual. If you want to do individual, it's going to be $300 an hour. But if you do group training, it's only going to be $100 an hour. And we have to do that every single day. You could really prey on that. But that's not the right way. That's not the honest way. The honest way is, well, Jim, he hasn't developed yet. Like, just keep practicing, keep playing, keep developing your skills. And then Jim's going to be all mad at you. Like, Dave doesn't know anything because he's still falling behind. He's working his ass off. And this kid's doing this. This kid's throwing 90. He's throwing he's able to hit a home run 400 feet. And my kid is still 4'11" and can't hit worth a lick.
Again, you have to always be constantly looking backwards and forwards at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to be vetting what have you been doing. Is it working? Is it not working? That could be where a change goes. That could be something that changes your trajectory, right? Then you have to always be looking forward. What can I change? What can I do differently? What can I add into it? Where's my body going? Where's my maturity level going? I'm not looking side to side. Side to side is at other people. That's where you're at a standstill. You have to be looking backwards and forwards, okay? That's where I always get into my process talks with people, and this is what we need to be doing. We need to stick to it. But then I always kind of go down the route of, and this is just a kind of, it's hard for people to understand that. I do get that. Like, if I go into that boring speech that I've gone into a million times and given you, okay, let's look at back what you did, what you've been doing. Now let's look at the future. How can we change it? How can we adjust this and that? And how can we stick to the process? That's boring. You're going to leave that meeting. You're going to leave that conversation unsatisfied. Totally get it. Totally get it. I don't expect people to just be like, yeah, no, hey, he's right. Let's stick to the process. It's going to get me right where I want to go. No chance. But then maybe you lay in some facts. You start talking about other situations. For example, I had a talk with the dad the other day who's unsatisfied with where his son's velocity is at a younger age. And I gave him some situations. Okay, you're a couple years away from high school. Well, here's where general high school kids enter. Well, your son's not too far away from that point. Okay, then I kind of talk about, well, we've had players who've entered the program and they're a little undeveloped physically and they threw X amount. 68 miles per hour working in high school, which was a little below average. Okay. And then they exited high school at 93. Now, how did they do that? Well, I don't know. How did they do that? You tell me. You give me the secret sauce, they say. Well, they did this, 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 and this while their body was maturing. Their body matured later than others did earlier. Okay. And then all of a sudden they popped off and it kind of mixed together and there you go. You've got it. Right. But there was a lot of work ethic that went involved. There was a lot of trust in what they're doing and trust in their coaches. Okay. And then I give them other situations of similar deals. Right. And it plays the same, in the fact that, yeah, you could be that person that gets lucky with genes and that you're always at the top of everything and that you have to work minimally to get the most success. And that's okay. That's like winning the lottery or having your first business idea be a home run. But that for the masses, that doesn't occur.
That's probably the worst thing that could happen to someone and I've seen this happen in sports, and I've seen this happen in a casino. I've seen this happen in investments. When you get the big win early, you feel like you're always going to win. And being blessed with being the top 13-year-old kid is probably a curse more than...
It's way more of a curse.
Yeah, I would not want to be the 13-year-old that is the stud. I would want to be middle of the road, maybe a little bit lower, and still trying to grind it out. And then even at that, like you can even fast forward it. So example is I went to junior college and I had to grind it out where all my other friends, there was a number of them that went Division 1, and I got to Division 1 my junior year. I was starting every day and they were still on the bench, not playing. How does that happen? They were way more talented than I was when we were in high school. But why am I starting my junior year and they're still sitting the bench? Because they were blessed. They got cursed, which is fine. Like some guys, it's different. There are some guys that end up, they're at the top and they stay at the top. Mm-hmm. But I could count so many more guys that were at the top and they end up being at the bottom.
I have a fantastic story that you reminded me of. So, I was watching the College World Series about 3 years ago, and Vanderbilt was in it. And Vanderbilt had a couple arms on their team that were going to be first-round draft picks, no doubt big leaguers in the future. Okay, one of those was a right-handed pitcher by the name of Jack Leiter. His dad was a multiple-time All-Star, Al Leiter, left-handed pitcher for the Mets, had a long, great career in the big leagues. And they were interviewing him while Jack was starting in the College World Series. And they started talking about Jack's, come up, okay? Like how did you approach his little league choices? How did you approach his high school choices? And I'll never forget this. And again, keep in mind, Al Leiter and the Leiter name, he could have put Jack on any single team he wanted across the country because they would have taken him. Okay, to have the resources of Al, to have the name associated, like he had a lot of choices. And Al simply said, I always wanted two things for Jack. Okay, I always wanted him to be in a situation where he was going to have fun and find love for the game. That had to be the foremost. Okay, then I also wanted to find a team where he was going to be in the bottom third. I never wanted him to be one of the best players on the team. I didn't want him to be the worst, but I wanted him to be in that bottom third-ish range because he was always going to be pushed. He was always going to be pushed to kind of find that next tool to excel his career, to get him to the next point, which is always evolving. Like you're never going to stop that. All right, there's only one guy at the top. There's only one Mike Trout. Then there's everyone else, okay? So you're always having to find that. And I found that as a very interesting perspective because most parents and players, and I totally understand this, are very fearful of being in that bottom third. They look at that bottom third as, my kid's got to catch up. We might get cut this next year. Man, he's failing at this. Let's go look at something else to do. Rather than looking at all the benefits of being in that bottom third. That bottom third teaches you how to be better, how to push yourself, how to strive for something better. Okay? And that's coming from an all-star. That I always remember and bring back to these conversations that I have with these parents is that it's not the end of the world where you're at. And it definitely doesn't define where you're going to be. You define where you're going to be, right? And the conversations and the situations, they're always going plus and minus. They're always going positive and negative, in my opinion. It can go any which way you want. You can take where you're at right now, but if you start changing it and evolving it, it can be better. It can also be worse. Don't worry about where you are now. Worry about where you can be in the future. And that's kind of where I think Al was setting up Jack because he knew that if he could provide a love for the game, he'd always be in it. He didn't want him to play because of his dad, who his dad was. He didn't want him to earn things because of who his dad was. He wanted Jack to earn things because of who he is, and he had to learn it on his own.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between a parent that has been through the gauntlet and the parent that is just starting out.
For sure.
Again,
yeah,
it's hard. Like again, I'm not.
You only know what you know.
Yeah, you only know what you know. Like I got into economics not knowing anything and thought everything was like rainbows and sunshine, right?
Right.
And then now I'm like really digging into like investments and everything like that, and really taking my losses and getting my wins and just chipping away.
Well, and you give different advice to people now than you would.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of consumers, when they jump in, they look for the quick win. They want, and for us, it's literally a quick win. I want as many W's for my team and my kid as I possibly can. So I'm gonna buy my way for the win, rather than, like I've always said, we've said this in the podcast before, a really good season for a team is not 42-2. It's more along the lines of like 30-22 or 30-18, somewhere in that 500-ish range.
600-ish, yeah.
Yeah, 600-ish range. If you're in that 800, 900 clip, that means that your competition, you were playing a very soft schedule, especially at this level, because there's not an equal amount of talent across the board. There's so many different varieties of talent in this game, which is good because you want the game to grow. You want more players in the game. You don't want less players, because then it just pushes the game and elevates the game more. But being 42-2 and then touting it online, I would be a little bit more embarrassed than I would than anything else. Because again, me personally, then you might disagree with me. There might be some Tiger families that disagree with me. I just think I'm more in it for the long run.
That's exactly
right. I don't want to be like, be pompous or be someone that's like at a high, like seems like they're at this level. It's just my honest opinion, and being in this game for a decent amount of time and thinking to myself, like, what actually accelerated my career. The 42-2 season was nice. Like, if you felt good, but the seasons that I learned the most, like I remember my first junior college season, we only won 8 games. But I learned so much in that 1 year. And then the next year, our team just went off and we ended up leading the nation in home runs. We had the character behind it. We had the leadership behind it. It was just a totally different club altogether. And I think the reason it was like that was because we were learning who we were my freshman year, because we were a young team.
Mm-hmm. You said it right, and I was going to interrupt you, but I'm glad you got to the point you got to. You have the hardest part of this whole entire situation is trying to buy into the long term. That is the hardest part, but it's the only way to go.
Well, that's it.
Go ahead.
When you think that, it's like it feels like the noble thing, but it's actually the right thing. It's not the noble thing; it's the right thing.
The quick response is always going to be for the short term. What can I do now? How can I give my kid something now to help him now? That is always going to be what you go to first, and I don't blame you. I would do the same thing. I've done the same thing. I probably will do the same thing. You have to be able to take a step back. You have to be able to try to look at the long process. Like, think about it this way. If your swing is not up to par with somebody your own age, and then you go put in 5,000 swings, is it going to be better? How long is it going to take to do those 5,000 swings? 4 or 5 months. Is it going to be better at that point? I guarantee, just by sheer numbers, it's going to be better.
That's what I find funny about lessons, is there are some times in a lesson, I tested this out a while ago. I was like, you know what? I used to talk so much in a lesson. And now what I do is I give the player 1 to 2 things max. And I don't talk that much. I give it to them in the beginning. We work on the tee, and then literally we go straight to BP and we just throw. And I have had more success with my players just because I'm throwing them BP. and they had that one little tidbit they were working on, and they got locked in more than me talking things through and really explaining things and going deep dive and like going above and beyond. Because I always thought like, okay, they're paying for this, they're paying $45 per half hour, I've got to give this amount of effort in how I deliver my how I teach it, and I wasn't getting the result. But then when we just started doing more reps and throwing BP, and I gave them one little tidbit to work on, they skyrocketed.
Because they're able to then achieve that one thing at a time while getting the reps necessary to get to that point. And then you just do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then at the point where you thought you were way behind, you'll wake up 6 months, a year down the road, if you continue that path and process, and you'll be like, now he's behind. Holy cow, what just happened? That's how that works. Rather than exhausting all efforts at that one moment of feeling behind and feeling like you're falling back and just trying to go down the route to get that quick fix to get back to level zero. That's where I think most people make the mistake, because they just keep reversing through that cycle over and over and over. And they're not just doing the one simple thing at a time to continue to gain.
Yeah, I always think of the Karate Kid too. Like the Master Miyagi never really explained things in depth. He gave them just a little bit of the yarn and see if the student will pull on that yarn. And if they're able to pull on that yarn, that tells the teacher, okay, they want to learn. So then I'll give them another piece of yarn and they'll pull on that, and then another one, rather than just going in this whole explanation of like vomiting all the info. Cause there's so much info in my head. There's so much info. Like it's just a vast sea of just stuff I've accumulated over the years. And like, I remember first doing this when I was in my 20s and just literally stating everything. Like, you gotta do this and that, and then if you do this, it'll do that. Like, I was just so excited about the topic, and then now I was just like, I'm gonna see how he goes, and I've lost a lot of clients too, because parents be like, well, what am I paying for? But they don't realize what I'm doing, which is, here's the yarn, pull on it. If you pull on it, you'll get more. Like it's a give and take. I just don't want to give everything up because you're not gonna remember it. I'm gonna get frustrated as a teacher and all that. So just funny how things work and what actually produces the result than the quick fix, the short term, the vomiting of information. It's all long run, 100% long run. It's like when you do a 100x leverage on a trade, and it's like, and then the trade goes backwards on you and then you just completely blow out. Like, rather than chipping away, getting your singles, listening to sentiment, and then figuring out, this is not investment advice, by the way. It's just, it's what I'm into right now. And I just find it so fascinating. And all the interviews that I've listened to and the books I've read, it's funny, like it's all correlated. It's like, get your singles, get your walks, get your hit by pitches, find the mistakes, find the hedges, and then just start capitalizing, chipping away for the long run. 9 innings is a long time.
I will leave you with this. If you listen to the most successful people in sport and business, you will very, if at all, ever hear, well, I just did one thing and I won all the time. It was great. It was amazing. I literally had this one thing and it just took me boom there. You'll always hear the same thing. Well, I don't know. It's a long accumulation of a million things that we just did, and we just kept doing it day after day and just kept learning and just kept growing and evolving, and then it started off small and now it's big, and then we keep evolving, and that's how it always works.
Seem, you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, that's the thing that skyrocketed me. But in reality, it was a big
accumulation.
That was a catalyst moment. That was a catalyst moment, and you're going to say that to your friends and family, and it's going to seem like that was the short-term fix.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was the things that accumulated up to that catalyst moment, and you capitalized on it, and then it ended up making that, got it.
100%.
Is that all you got?
That's all I got, man. Just keep on working. Literally, I mean, It's easy to panic. It's understandable. Keep on working. Keep on accumulating information. Keep on working through the process. I'm a firm believer that at the end of the day, if you keep on putting in that work, that time, that day after day, that accumulation of information, you'll get to where you want to get to. It's not the fun. It's not the easy answer. It's not the sexy answer that everybody wants, but it's the truth.
Well, I hope you guys are having fun as you're driving to your next location or working out. Just think of us in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the Hilton Garden Inn. This is not a sponsored post, but you can come to the Hilton Garden Inn. We're probably still here in a rain delay. But till next time, guys, make sure that you give us a 5-star review and also follow us on social. See ya.
Thanks, guys.